Hi everyone, welcome to the second video here, kind of introducing you to our longitudinal data analysis workshop for the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine. In this video, I wanted to show you a little bit more of how we actually will be using some of the materials in the workshop. So hopefully you've watched the first video on installing R and RStudio, and if you've completed that installation, you've seen a little bit about opening RStudio and have gained a little bit of familiarity with the interface. But in this one, I actually wanted to show you how to use the specific materials that we're going to be using in this course. So the first thing that you need to do is download the zip folder that's been provided to you over email or through the course's GitHub page. And then we're going to extract this zip folder. So I'm just going to right click on it if I'm on a PC. Right, and I'm going to say extract all. And then I'm going to select a location. And just for the sake of consistency, let's just put it in the documents folder. Now I'll say extract. Okay, and then once it's there, let's go open that up. And so you can see here are the actual files within that documents folder. So we have our different worksheet files. So we have Word and PDF versions of the different worksheets. For people doing session 1, which is the morning session, right? That's provided here. So we can open that up, and just to show you, you can see then here's the longitudinal data analysis workshop, and this is for practical session 1 in the morning session, and this is what we will be showing you in the videos, kind of going through the codes that you can follow along with this handout. And the handout contains kind of written text explanations of the concepts and what it is that we're trying to do, but then it also contains our code like here to actually show you then how to implement something. And so this is in the script files that I'll show you in a second, but this code is already provided for you. So what we kind of want you to do is have this worksheet open and then your script file open in RStudio so that you can follow along running that code as you are shown in the video. And then we will be talking through, kind of the implications of all these things. So the worksheet, the script file, and the video should all flow together. They're all in the same order. And the video shows me working through the script file, talking over it, and providing you some context for the different results in the code that we're running. And then the worksheet just kind of pools all of that together in one place so that you have a reference, that you can follow along with and refer back to later. So that's the same for the afternoon session. The only difference is that in the afternoon session, we have two different worksheets. We have a worksheet for session 2, and we have a worksheet for session 3 in that afternoon session. But otherwise, it's the exact same idea. We are going to be opening up our script files, and you can see we've got session 1 again for the morning session, and then sessions 2 and 3 for the afternoon session. And you'll have those script files open as you watch the video and as you follow along with the worksheet, and they all flow together in order. So the script file allows you to do everything on your own, running this code in R. The worksheet gives you a written explanation of what's going on. And then the video is sort of like a tutorial how-to. It shows me doing it in real time and talking through the process as we go through that code. Okay, so next, now that we have the kind of that general setup of those different worksheet files, the other thing I wanted to point out was that we have our 3 different script files. We also have 3 different data files in this folder. And again, the data for session 1 is the morning session. Sessions 2 and 3 are the 2 different data files that we'll use in the afternoon session. But we won't actually be interacting with these things kind of here in the Windows Explorer, right? Outside of opening up the worksheets, what we're actually going to want to do is open RStudio. So let me go ahead and open up RStudio. And once I have RStudio open, I'm going to open our script file. So I'm going to go to File, Open File, and then I'm going to go into the Documents folder, right? And I'm going to go to ACRM 2018. I'm going to go to Scripts. And then, because if this is our morning session, right, the first session we're doing, I'm going to go to ACRM Practical Session 1, and I will open that script file. And so if you watch the last video, we talked a little bit about this in terms of the layout here in RStudio, but I have my script window up here where you can actually see this script file. So I have some comments, right, indicated with the hashtag, and those are grayed out because RStudio knows that the comments aren't actually code. And then the parts that are code actually get color coded. So then it's telling us, okay, what's a function, what's an argument, and it gives us information about what different bits of the code are actually doing. So once we have this open, I'm going to run the first bit of code, which is to open these packages into our library, right? So if you watched the previous video, we talked about installing and using some of these packages. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and just run the code on line 6 by placing my cursor on that line, right? And then I can either click run up here, or I can place my cursor on that line and hit Control Enter, or Command Enter if you're on a Mac, and it will open those packages into my current library. And again, the reason why we have that kind of distinction is you can install the code on your computer by downloading a package, but you don't necessarily want every package you've ever downloaded open at the same time, because sometimes they have functions with names that, you know, kind of compete with each other and overwrite each other. So we want to have kind of control over which functions we're actually bringing into our R session at any one time, and we can do that with the library functions. If you have not already installed these packages, what you'll need to do is run the line of code down here on lines 8 and 9, right, to go ahead and install these packages so that we can actually use them during our R session. Okay, then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the working directory. We did talk a little bit about this in the previous video, but the idea, right, is that your working directory is the location that R is going to look to anytime we are opening up a data file or trying to save any kind of item out of our R session, right? So we might create a graphic and try to save it. It's also going to go into working directory. The working directory is basically the folder in which R does all of its work, right? And we need to tell it where to look in different situations. So we can start with the get WD, or the get working directory command. And when I run that line of code up here on line 14, you can see that it returns the current working directory. So it's currently set to my C drive, and specifically the documents folder on the C drive. So what I want to do next is then update this file path in order to set the working directory to that ACRM 2018 folder that we're using for the workshop. So I have two ways of doing this. The easiest way to set that working directory is to go to Session, Set Working Directory, and then I can say Choose Directory. And then here, you know, it'll take me by default to the Documents folder because that's the current working directory. I can select ACRM 2018, and then I can say Open. And you can see it'll run this code, you know, set WD, and then it uses this tilde because it's appending this to the current the directory, and we're just going one folder deeper, and we're saying ACRM 2018. The other way I could do this is by actually manually changing the file path up here, and I could say, okay, change my working directory to the C drive, users, my username, then documents, and then I could say ACRM underscore 2018. And I could set the working directory manually that way. And now, just to make sure that we're in the right place, we can run the list files command, right? And that will show us then all the files that are saved in that location. So you should see our different worksheets, both the docx versions and the PDF versions. We have a subfolder called data. We have a subfolder called scripts. And then we also have an example figure called figure1.png. So when you run that list files command here on line 16, you should be able to see all of those things. So next, just to make sure that everything's working the way that it should, let's go ahead and actually import the data for session 1. So again, you're going to see how to do this in the actual video for session 1 and the worksheets for session 1. But let's just take a look at it now to make sure you feel confident with being able to import this data and actually do something with it. So to do that, we're going to create an object called data, and we're going to use the read.csv function to import the session 1 CSV. Okay, and so then what you can see here is that we have all of our different variables, right? They're labeled, and we have the first 6 rows, or the first 6 observations for each of those variables being printed to the screen. Because this head function allows us to take a peek at kind of the top 6 rows of the data file. Once we have those data imported, right, what we're going to do is create one simple data visualization. So the code for this is actually a little bit complicated, and I'm happy to talk you through this ggplot code in more detail, like during the Q&A that we'll have, or our offline, over email and in a separate Zoom session. But in brief, what we're going to do is we're going to look at months on the x-axis and people's Roche scaled FIM scores on the y-axis. And then we're going to have both points and lines to show each person's data. And then we're going to use different facets based on the AIS grade for each of these individuals. So what that will do is it'll create different panels based on the AIS grades. And within each of those panels, then we'll get kind of a connected scatter plot, because again, we're using points and lines. So we'll have a connected scatter plot where we're showing people's Roche scaled FIM scores over time. So creating object G1 creates the basic structure. Then I'm going to create G2, which is G1 plus some information to change the labels. And then I'll create object G3, which is G2 plus some extra information to kind of change the aesthetic elements of the plot. So let's go ahead and create G2, then we'll create G3, and then we'll print it to the screen. And what you should get is a figure that looks something like this. Where you can see we've got the different AIS grades, C1 to 4, C5 to 8, and people with paraplegia. And then we have a line and a series of dots for each person showing how their Roche scaled FIM scores changed over time. And so that's pretty cool because, this is a pretty powerful visualization that we've made here. And it's neat that we were able to kind of get this going so quickly in R, right? So even though probably you're unfamiliar with a lot of the things that are going on right now, the kind of thing I want to impress upon you is if you were to create this kind of, individual data plot in some other program like Excel, it's certainly possible, but it takes you a lot more time than, the 8 lines of code that we have in R in order to create this plot. And so now that we have it, let's go ahead and save it. So I'm going to export this. And it's automatically going to want to place it into our ACRM 2018 directory. And I'm going to save it with the name figure 1. And I'm going to make this 1200 pixels by 400 pixels because we've got 3 panels side by side. So I'm going to make it 3 times as wide as it is tall. I'm going to turn on view plot after saving, and then I will say save. We do already have a file with this name, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and overwrite it. And then what we should see is our exported figure will then pop up here. And you can see that for each of the AIS grades, we're looking at each individual's Roche scaled FIM scores over time. So I hope that helps as kind of an introduction to opening R in our studio, opening our script files, how we're going to import the data, and then we're going to build on this when we actually start the sessions on Tuesday. And please let me know if you have any questions, anything related to R or troubleshooting any of these issues before then or during the conference. And I really look forward to seeing you there. Thanks very much.